true? You can
Yes, it
confirm.
is
You can
visible.
see my. Okay. Okay. So we are considering this 32-bit architecture of MIPS, right? So instructions are all 32 bits. Of course, character and other things, you have 1 byte of storage, I mean the usual stuff. And we have 32 general purpose registers here, right? And and in QtSpim, it also implements that you have the stack, which is growing from the high memory to the low memory. That means more items you push into the stack, the stack top will go to lower address values. This is something which we will use when we will be doing programs in MIPS assembly using recursive functions. So for today, it's not required. And also we have these different registers in MIPS, right? And these are accessible from using this special dollar sign when you are writing the assembly language instructions. By the way, when you I mean when you are programming, you can have these files, the assembly files, in a .s format. And something interesting I will tell you, like everybody, I assume, here has used the GCC compiler, right? So when you are using the GCC compiler in your home system, right, you are possibly targeting an Intel instruction set, right? The CISC, which is a CISC instruction set. Or if you are running in a AMD system, you are targeting the AMD instruction set. Now, when you compile in GCC followed by file name minus o, the target, that gives you an executable in that target name, right? But if you just try this GCC with the option -s followed by, let's say, some hello.c, you will get as output a hello.s, which is basically the file in the assembly instructions. So then, I mean, you can do it in any system, in your system, and you will get to see the assembly instructions pertaining to your system. Okay, I mean, well, definitely your system won't be a MIPS system, so it will be in the different instruction set. Now coming back, so when we are talking about these registers, the general purpose registers would be accessible here using this $0 to $31, like this. Okay, and apart from this, you have several other registers in the system which have got this special purpose. Okay, so for example, you have this register 0, which always stores the value 0, right? And we will see that how this can be useful. Okay, so for example, you have several other classes of registers. Some of the registers are specific for, let's say, you are making a subroutine call. Now when you make the subroutine call in assembly, you would be storing the values in specific registers which will pertain to storing the arguments for the subroutine call. So let's say you have from $A0 to $A3. I mean, this is the assembly mnemonic of these registers. Actual register numbers are 4 to 7. So this can be used for storing the parameter values in this order: first argument, second argument, or first parameter, second parameter, like that, for the procedure call that you are trying to make, right? And then you have the normal registers here. For some of the registers actually have the values saved even under a functional call, and some of the registers, the values are not saved under a say procedure call. So inside a procedure, we will not be able to see the values, right? So there's the different classification. Right now, we don't need all these things. Today, we'll be doing just simple assembly programming, and we'll be bringing these complexities later on. We're just trying to make the point here that you have these registers and some of them have got special purpose. For example, you have one register which you will specifically use for pointing to the last location of the stack, right? And similarly, you will have a register for storing the return address of processes. This is again something we'll cover later on when we'll be discussing a bit more complex assembly language programming. Now here, we'll just start with what is the basic structure of MIPS assembly file. So you will have two segments. One is the data segment and the other is the text segment. Now the data segment will contain specific assembler directives, or basically this is like the RAM area that you are getting. So you can store specific variables and all that. And when the QtSpim will start, it will automatically identify that since this is written after the directive dot data, it will put them in the memory at specific locations, right? And then after that, you will have the dot text segment where it is expected that you write the assembly instruction directives. But the MIPS will also need to understand from where it will start execution, and that it will find from this label main. So if we can quickly start with a sample program example. So this is how it will be structured. So this is just as you can see, a sample file. You have a data segment, dot data followed by whatever you write or variable declarations here. Now, by the way, this is how you comment. So everything followed by the sharp symbol in the same line is basically a comment in MIPS assembly. Okay. And then you have the instruction or the text segment, and the first instruction will start executing from this label main. So that's the main function. Okay. Now, for variables, you can specify the storage type, and storage types can be like this. It can be a dot word storage type. So if you are storing a variable with the name var1, then if you write dot word, so you are basically storing a 32-bit integer whose value is initialized as 3. Okay. You are storing an array name array1. Okay. So you have a 2-element array. You can specify like this. Okay. You are initializing the values there. This is a 2-element character array. Since this is a character array you want, so you are writing dot byte, right? So in this way you can specify the different storage types. Okay. So just 1 minute. So these are MIPS usual. I think MIPS instructions you are already aware of. So yeah. So these are the all the storage types that are there. So you have the dot word, dot half if you are trying to store some 16-bit value. Note that it's a 32-bit architecture. Dot byte for storing single byte characters. Something interesting. Suppose you want to store a string, right? So if you write dot ASCII, if that is your storage directive, so I hope I am making it quite clear to you. So this is the variable name, right? Then you are giving the storage type. It's a dot byte, and here in the another listing, I have all the other possibilities. So if you write dot ASCII, after that you can put a string here, right? So this string will be stored. Whatever is inside the double quote will be stored as the string under that variable. But note, this is not a null terminated string like we do in CS, right? If you want a null terminated string without specifically null terminating you should use this dot ASCII Z, this storage type. Okay. If you just want to have a free space of n consecutive bytes, just have dot space, right? It will leave an empty space like this. Now this is interesting, dot align. So have you heard this term byte aligned memory? Anybody? Hello. So in MIPS, when you address the memory, how do you assign addresses? Do you assign addresses to every byte, or do you assign addresses to, I mean, every 32-bit consecutive location as one address? So how do you really do it? Anybody? If you know this, if you have read from the book or somewhere. Kunal Singh. Okay, I think he is sleeping. Somebody is leaving. Nakul Agarwal. Okay, please mark him absent. Shomadhuti, you are there, right?
So can
Yes.
you please repeat the question?
Okay, now what were you doing?
So what, I was in the class only.
I don't think so. You are not listening to anything. Okay, Amartha Mandal, are you there? Amartha Mandal.
Yes, sir.
So did you listen to the question?
No, sir, I didn't get the question
Okay.
actually.
Okay. Anybody who has listened to the question? Yashika? Ritoban?
So I understood the question, but I do not know the answer.
Okay, can you please repeat the question?
So it's about alignment of bytes in memory. Like if you're assigning space to something, how is it aligned in memory?
Thank you. Thank you. At least somebody listen to the question. So if we ask and somebody is not answering, I request the TS to just mark them as absent. Okay, coming back. See why this question is relevant. Let's understand first. If you read computer architecture, you will see there is a term called byte. I mean byte addressable memory. And for our all usual architectures, we use byte addressable memory. It means every single byte in the memory has a unique address. Now, why is this important? Note that this need not have been the case. That is why this is important. Why this need not have been the case? Suppose it was such that you were having the minimum storage type greater than 1 byte, then you will never be accessing in multiples of byte, right? But since in our system you have the minimum storage type as characters, which is a single byte, so fundamentally you may require to address to look for addresses which are at the granularity of bytes itself, not as multiples of byte, right? So when I am generating addresses in the memory, I need to have the address of every byte, right? So that's why it's a byte addressable memory. Now the question is about alignment. So suppose I have used this directive align n. That means whatever this value, so I will have a variable name, then this storage type dot align, and then I will write some n or something, right? That means the next data that I am going to store will be on a 2 to the power n byte boundary. That means align 2 assigns the next value. That means whatever is getting stored next is the next value to a word boundary. Why? Because 2 is then 2 to the power 2, that is 4 byte is 32, and 32 is the memory word size in a 32-bit architecture, right? So that's how I will align so that the next whatever I am going to store, that gets stored in a word boundary. Am I clear?
So still, what is the meaning of align here?
What is the meaning of align?
Yeah.
What have you understood of what I just said?
So byte addressable memory, I understood that's it, but you said word alignment.
Yeah, so can you read this? This is what I just said. That if I write something, I mean dot align n, it's aligning the next data on a 2 to the power n byte boundary. So suppose I write dot align 2, okay? That means after this, whatever I am, so 2 means then what? 2 to the power 2, that is 4. 4 byte is 32, right?
Yeah.
So that means whatever is the next address that is a multiple of 32, that should be the address where I am going to store something.
Yeah, understood, sir.
Now, since that address is a multiple of 32, so that's why it's a word boundary, because this is a 32-bit memory word system on which we are working, right? If I have a 32-bit architecture, that means the memory word size is 32, right? So that's why it's written as a word boundary. Fine. Okay. So this is a quick cheat sheet containing all the MIPS instructions examples, which by the way has been already covered in your class. So do we need to go through this really? MIPS instructions and all that. So can somebody say what is the difference between, let's say, a load immediate instruction and a load word instruction? Is covered, right?
Sir, load immediate like transfers a constant value to a register, while a load word will transfer from memory to a register, and it will transfer like 32 bytes from a memory
Absolutely.
address to a 32-bit register.
Absolutely. And then you have different kind of branch instructions, right? On greater than, on less than, and all these things, which are also covered. And you have this comparison instructions, set on less than or set on less than immediate. This is covered.
Yes.
Okay, fine. So fine. Then this is okay. Now let's come to the important thing, which is about system calls. I think this also has been discussed in your tutorial, but we will just go through it once. So this has been covered, right? This system calls for SPIM. Anybody?
The read-write
Yes, sir.
calls have been covered.
So it has
So fine. So that means you know how to do basic printing or basic scanning or values using suitable system calls. So just to summarize, it is very simple thing. So the idea is you have to do I/O along with basic computation. So the idea of I/O is implemented using this interface of system calls in the SPIM simulator. So these are the different kind of services that are on offer. For each of these services, like printing things or reading things in specific formats like int float double or reading in format int float double, you have to put specific codes in this $V0 register. And if this involves a specific argument, for example, print, you have to give what is the argument to be printed, stuff like that, then you have to put them in specific variables, specific registers, and then you just have to fire this syscall command, right? And once you do that, then the reading and writing is done. So it's basically an I/O mechanism which is supported in the SPIM simulator. So fine, then with this, I think we all have a nice overview. Now, Shomoduti, shall we have a basic demo of that program?
Yes, sir. C30 actually has prepared. C30 is given.
Okay, okay. So then I have unshared my screen. So you can just share the screen and give a simple demonstration of a program running using and setting breakpoints in SPIM. That part can be demonstrated while running a program. Okay,
Okay.
over to you, Sujita.
Hello. So is my screen visible? Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So you can download the assignment from Moodle actually. So in the tutorial 1, we have described what is the question. So I have also shared the solution as well in the Moodle for that particular tutorial question. So you can download that file. So once you download the file, you can reinitialize and load file. Okay. So by doing that, you choose that particular .s file, you load it, and this kind of text will come. So what is written in that file is something different from what is shown in the text file actually. So if we open the text file, this is what. Yes. So this is a program that will display the sum of integers from 1 to n. So it will take the input from the user and print it. So this is the actually MIPS code. And when you reload and reload this program in the Qt SPIM, you first play it or execute it, and so it will come in the console. That will come in the right side console. It will ask for an input, so a 5, and it will display the result. So this is how we execute our MIPS program here. You will go to this reinitialize and load file, load that particular file. Whatever you need to edit in the file, do it in a text file and save it as .s file. You need to load and then run it. So for debugging purpose, like if you want to see like it is not the result coming, so you want to debug where exactly it has gone wrong. So instead of running the whole step, you can also go for a single step iteration. So for that, you again have to reload that file. So every time you run, you have to reload that file. Otherwise, you will get error.
Yeah, please remember this thing. This is a problem with the simulator, but you have to live with it.
Yeah. So for single step, it will come from every line will be executed one by one, and you can see that at that line actually that system call has happened. So from here you got this console value, say 5. You put enter and you again go to stepwise execution. So there was a loop, that is why it go back to that particular step. And if you see that the program counter is getting changed in this in register data, so you can see that the PC is being changed at each iteration, and the R4 registers and all those values. Here R17 got modified, and like that it will continue until the program finishes. So finally the 15 has come. So this is done. So you often see that the register is coming decimal or hex or binary. So choose decimal to understand. It will be better to set it as decimal. And rest of the settings you do not need to change. So that is the demo. And the other questions are already in that Moodle for the assignment, the rest of the 3 questions.
That we will explain. Have you explained this code once? The code for this?
It is already commented. I have shared this file actually with them in the Moodle. So for every step I have given the comment, so they can go through that.
Yeah, maybe you wait. Let me just wait. Yeah, just start. Yeah, so everybody, you can see that. Can you just go a bit, scroll up? Yeah, so you have this text and data sections, right? And these are commented. So for example, like we discussed, if you have a null terminated string, for that you use that ASCII Z directive. So using that, you have got this being part of this variable prompt, right? And so the first thing we are doing is in the data segment, you are storing whatever strings. I mean, you want to be a part of this program. I mean, let's just understand the basic strategy here. So go to the top, extreme top. Yeah, so it's already there. So first you have the basic comments, then well, you have the data segment. The first thing, like we discussed, we are trying to store all the respective strings that we are going to use here. And so then we can, in the program, we can refer to the strings by the variable names that are correspondingly used. For example, if we use the prompt, then using prompt, we can just get the print enter a positive integer, that string, right? So that's how it is. And then inside the text segment, you have the main program. And in the main program, well, first thing you are doing is you are having a syscall, right? And with the syscall, as you can see, before the syscall, you are setting v0 to 4, right? So with v0 equal to 4, if you remember, when we had been discussing, that puts it in the print string mode, right? When I showed you that previous instruction set, that what are the different parameters that can be with this thing. So when I want to print a string, then this register needs to store a value of 4, right? So that's what is getting done. And then you are having this system call, and also before this system call, you are supposed to load the register A0 with the start address of the string in the memory, right? Now you have the start address where? In the label prompt, right? So that's why you have this LA $A0 prompt, right? So essentially these two lines are kind of fulfilling the requirement of printing the string. The first thing is, by setting v0 to 4, you are telling that, well, I want to print a string, and then by storing the start address of the string in A0, you are telling the simulator that, well, this is the string I want to print, and now when you write the syscall command, it will just print the string by accessing that address and using its mechanism, right? And then again, you need another system call, of course, to scan the input. So again, you have a suitable parameter, now 5. So with 5, you have the input. So 5 is the parameter for scanning integers. Similarly, you have other parameters for scanning strings and whatever, right? Now the scanned value is supposed to reside in this V0 again. So you move it with the move instruction to S0, right? So that's how it is done. And similar, and now once this is done, now you need to do your regular computation, right? Now regular computation is pretty standard, as we can all see. I mean, whatever is the program requires is doing it. And again at the end you have this system call through which you do the first print of the of the string, that what is the sum of first, and then you print the value and blah blah blah. I mean, whatever is the integer and all those things. So I think it's a quite simple thing. So you need to remember the MIPS instructions, and you need to understand the assembler directives which are required for storing strings, characters, integers, stuff like that. And you need to remember the different parameters of calling the syscall. With this much, whatever assignments we have given today, pretty simple assembly instruction based programming, you can just do it. Wait, I'm then sharing my screen. It will be easier for me then.
Okay, sir. Yeah, I have stopped sharing. You can.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Yeah, so the first one is like Srijita already discussed this problem, and for the code we have also, I mean, kind of explained to you. So you don't need to submit this.
It's also
Yeah,
shared.
it's also shared. The sample code is also there in Moodle, right? So you can just walk through it for learning purpose. You don't need to submit this. Now the next 3 programs you should submit. The deadline should be this Sunday. So that's enough time. You have the entire week actually. I mean, starting from today. So the second one which you submit is this MIPS program for computing GCD. But note something. So you have to scan and take the 2 inputs, right? Both should be positive numbers, right? And of course, inside your code, this is important. I mean, this, we will be marking based on these things. There should be sanity checking. That means you should have conditional execution to check that the integers are indeed positive, right? And once that is done, you have to calculate the GCD, but do not use the standard GCD algorithm, which employs division. And right, I mean, so instead of that, you use this simple procedure of computing GCD without division. I think it's a simple one. No need to again explain and all that. Most of you may already be knowing it. It's just replacing the division by repeated subtraction, and that's all, right? And finally, you compute the value. So this is one we have to submit. And the next one is very simple. You enter a positive integer greater than or equal to 10. Again, you should implement the sanity checks. So this is basically just checking that whether the program, input is prime or a composite value. Now, so essentially it's like a primality test, right? But as I mean, we are saying that it need not be very efficient. That means we are not asking you to implement the most efficient primality test or whatever. So just do standard common sense checking whether a number is prime or not, right? And accordingly you display whether it's a prime or not as a message. That's it, right? And the last program for the assignment, again, I mean, since these are the first MIPS examples, we want everybody to have a practice. So these are quite simple ones. Again, you have a positive integer to check as input. You have to implement the sanity check. And then your program just finds out whether it's a perfect number or not. If so, it says it's a perfect number. Otherwise, it says that whether it's not a perfect number. So just in case you have forgotten, a perfect number is what? I mean, it's factors. When you sum them up, it will return that number itself. So 6 with factors 1, 2, and 3 is perfect number, and the next examples are 28, 496, and so on. So very simple programs, because this is the first MIPS assignment. So this you have to do inside this Sunday. It should be doable. So I think that is your assignment for the entire week today, as well as the next lab hours on Friday. So in next lab on Friday, we'll be online. If you have queries about this, I don't think there would be, because these are pretty simple ones. We'll be available for you to ask questions on this. Anything from your side? Anybody?
So like how like how would we clear if there is any doubt or something, like should we post it on the channel? Like there is
Yeah. That's the whole purpose of the channel. You post all your related doubts in the student discussion channel.
Okay, so we can expect a response like within few hours, right?
One of us or one of the TAs, we have a team. You can expect a response inside. One half. Like if you post in the first half of the day.
Okay.
Maybe we should get a thing. Inside the second half.
Okay, got it.
Because if you post in late first half, it should be there inside second half. If you post it in early first half, it should be there inside that half. 2-3 hour latency may be there inside the working hours. After that, well, if we see the message, we will definitely reply back.
One more thing is last.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just had a question.
Yes, sure.
Yes. So, sir, for the second question, where we had to do a primality testing, basically.
Right.
Over there, we'll have to implement checking whether, let's say, A is divisible by B somehow. So, can we do that, by repeated subtraction or something like that, or is there some
no
way
restriction is given? No restriction is specified.
So, is there okay, sir? Is there some way to implement modulo otherwise in a faster way or something?
We are not specifying any restriction. We are leaving it to you.
Okay,
we are giving restriction only in the GCD program.
Got it, sir.
And also in the primary testing, we are not asking you to implement the most efficient way to do it.
Got it, sir.
Okay, somebody is asking, do we need to make a report? No, we don't need a report. But what is must is your program must have suitable comments. You look into the sample program we have provided. Reading through the comments, the TA or myself, we will understand what you are doing, right? So that's it.
Sir, I would like to remind that last assignment, almost 10 groups has actually mailed us instead of like they have.
This why is this happening? This is a very important point. We have given you a deadline, and even after we have extended that deadline, I think twice, and after that you are mailing. So definitely we are not going to entertain those assignments. Unless you have a very, very solid justification, we are not going to entertain those late submissions. Yeah, this was a preliminary assignment. It may have a very small weightage or whatever. But if you remember, we have extended the deadline twice, right? So after that, if you are submitting after Moodle closes, like RSC mentioned in the last lecture, that if you mail, we are not looking into that. It has to be in Moodle inside the time. And after 2 extensions, this simply cannot work. So please be careful. If you have mailed and there is a very, very reasonable situation due to which it was not possible, you have to explain that. Otherwise, it is not simply done. Specifically for the first assignment I'm talking, just because we extended the deadline twice. Okay. And as I said, please comment your code suitably, because without if your program hasn't got suitable comments, marks is going to be discarded like that, right? And try and understand it. Somebody among us is going to run each of your program, right? So if your program doesn't have any comment and it's not understood that how the program is supposed to behave when run, it cannot be evaluated. So this is absolutely essential. What you can do is, before the program part starts, at the top in a commented section, you can write like what is expected. This is what the program is doing. The first line prints this, then this is what should be the input, and then the second line prints this, like that. You can describe it right there in 1 or 2 lines, and have comments for each of the subroutines or important parts of the program. I mean, of course, you don't need to comment like this, that this is a variable be getting stored. I mean, maybe, for example, there is a sequence of lines which is doing a scan, equivalent of scanf. You can just write as a comment that section of code for scanning a string, section of code for printing a string, section of code for entering a variable, a loop for computing something. This kind of I mean, of course, you are all of us. You are great coders, so you know that what kind of comments are really legible. So do that kind of commenting. Is this clear? Any doubts? Anybody? Hello, Parth Jindal, you are there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm there.
Any question? Is this fine?
Yes, sir. It's fine.
Okay, so we have the assignment uploaded. Deadline is till Sunday midnight. So please have a go. And if there are no more questions, then maybe we will close this session. Aditya Piyush.
Yes, sir.
Is this understood? You have studied MIPS assembly and all that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we will also upload a set of materials related to SPIM and MIPS instruction set and all that. I think some material is already there in your theory, but also in the lab tutorial part we'll upload. So have a look.
So this sheets that you showed during the class, I have uploaded in the Teams.
Okay. So just 1 minute, Shomoduti.
Yes.
Let me share the screen. This is the assignment. Sorry. This is the MIPS instruction set. Arithmetic, logical, everything. This one is uploaded, right? System call.
Yes, sir. This one is uploaded.
Okay. And this one is uploaded, this quick tutorial.
Yes, sir. This one is also.
Okay. And now another one. There are quite a many. This is one nice thing as a appendix of the book itself. I think this is also a good material. Is this uploaded?
Yes, sir.
Fine. Then we have all set. We don't require anything more. Okay, fine. So happy coding. We will close the session if there are no more issues. Satvik, any question?
No, sir. No.
Okay. Just note one thing. If you are using this simulator in Windows or Mac, I think it behaves a bit differently. In one of them, the console is integrated, and another one, the console comes separately. There is a small discrepancy. So just check that.
So okay. On this note, so I wanted to ask, like, would the architecture of the chip that we have in our laptops would matter?
No. How will that matter? Because your simulator is mimicking MIPS. So the laptop has a AMD system or an Intel system. It doesn't matter, because I think when you are downloading the simulator executable corresponding to that system only, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So it should not matter. If it get installed, it doesn't matter, because it is simulating only the MIPS 32-bit instruction set. Okay, thank you. And from the next assignment, we will try to have a bit more involved kind of programs. Bye then.